talking with Paul Deloria, saxophone player and leader of the group Hard Logic. How you doing, Paul?
Hey Barry, how's it going this morning?
About as well as I can do this morning.
Yeah,
How's the weather up there in New York? What part of what part of New York you in?
we're up in Rochester, New York, so we're right up smack dab on Ontario Lake. So we get dumped on with the lake effect snow, as you would call it, and it's a good time in the winter. We get like a gazillion inches of snow. So it's over. That's all. That's whatever the weather is outside right now. Winter's over, and that's all I care about. So.
Okay, well that works.
Not a skier, not a winter person.
Well, tell me, how long has the group Hard Logic been together?
We started back in. I actually got a timeline. I know I spoke with you a bit about it before, and I get my, years go by, and you get like a time warp, But I'm looking at, I keep like a timeline, and officially started back in '02, and it was myself and a guitarist named Tony Mann who was the co-founder. So basically, without him, it wouldn't have been, because he kind of, me being the youngest guy in the group at that point, I just turned 34 March 29th, so 8 years, something like that. So I was just playing in a lot of blues bands, and I met Tony, and we had this love for smooth jazz and that kind of thing. So we wanted to kind of do the smooth jazz thing, and we had all these songs we wrote, and it was a lot more of a smooth jazz type of vibe back then, like with me and him. But we started the group with no band, and then went out and actually booked gigs with our demo that we made in the studio, and then we went out and found the band. So it was kind of what'd you say, like the cart before the horse type of thing,
I hear you.
But it worked out because we were able to sell those gigs on better players. So when they came out, we could say, hey, we got this jazz festival, we got this, and so they were a little bit more enthused rather than, all right, you're crazy, you're starting a jazz fusion group, like, what the hell are you going to do with this?
Yeah.
How are we going to make money? How are we going to do this? So, it was hard to get it started, but through the years we kind of it changed. Obviously you've heard the new record, and it's a lot edgier and more of a funk, Latin, a lot of different influences, but it's definitely not smooth jazz. So and I like a lot of the smooth jazz stuff, but our playing's more of a live type group, kind of from the same kind of vibe as like Steps Ahead or Weather Report, something like that, Spyro Gyra, more of that. Those groups live, what they bring live, we try to bring live in the studio, and keep that live feel. So
okay, yeah, because I was going to say it. I thought I heard some Spyro Gyra, some Rippington, some little Brecker Brothers or something like that. But you've pretty much been described as a super high energy group, taking the spirit of old school to modern day progressive fusion and what have you.
Right.
And then the other groups, you mentioned the Weather Report. Anybody else that may have had an influence on your writing and your playing?
I mean, from the get-go, I always listened to a lot of guitarists, and my parents actually had a band. My dad was a guitarist. They had a party band for 20 years. But I was influenced by a lot of guitar, John Scofield and Mike Stern and Frank Gambale. I always wanted to play like the ripping jazz fusion guitar stuff. I love listening to that. I listen to a lot of bass players. I play bass as well. Early sax players, Sanborn definitely, Eric Marienthal. I always had that alto thing going on. I tried switching to tenor a few years ago just to kind of make sure that I wasn't missing out on some hidden voice I had for tenor, and I'm definitely an alto player, but you'll hear a lot of tenor on our records because it records well. I just don't like switching horns live, and the alto cuts a lot more. So,
yeah.
I like to I don't like that fight to be heard over, and you're at the mercy of the sound man a lot of the time, so it's just easier to stay on one horn.
Yeah. Okay, well, I was going to say, you say you also play some bass. You put me kind of, with that tenor, kind of puts me in mind of somebody like Wilton Felder. who does tenor and bass. Did bass on a lot of the early Crusaders out.
Yeah.
So you pretty much got the gigs before the group,
Yeah.
which was an unusual way to do things, but obviously effective because looking at the background on the group, I'm seeing where you've gotten some special recognition from Billboard magazine, and your music is. So you did a Christmas CD?
Yeah, we got to play with a bunch of upstate New York artists.
I'm seeing some
Steve
names.
Gadd was on there.
Yeah.
We had a lot of different, the top jazz guys and stuff from up this way, and it was kind of it was put on by an organization called Celebrate Upstate, which kind of recognizes this area's art forms, music as well as arts and that kind of thing. So there's probably more to do, that. And I actually wrote that song back in 5th grade, and we pulled out the old videotape and we playing it on piano at a Christmas concert. And stripped it down and made an arrangement for Hard Logic, which it's online also. If you go to I think it's a link off our website at hardlogic.net. All the records are there as well. But we've done a lot of things over the years, and it's changed. And I think what drives it is that as the personnel changed and as we've done auditions for new players, we've attracted better and better players as the group's grown, and we've always been upfront that we're not going to make any money. We put all the money back into the project, back into the next album. It's more of a club than it is a band to make a living at right now. It's you got to have the right attitude and the right vision that we have, and that to create the best music and the best recordings possible and improve on it every year. And we've turned down some great players, but we have even better players. We have great players that are in it for the right reason right now. So I think, and a lot of things happened the last year. We did the International Jazz Festival up here, and we got to, share the stage with, McCoy Tyner, and down the street we had Phil Woods playing, and, James Brown was up here that year at a James. So, to see ourselves on that kind of a bill was a realization that we kind of hit another level. And then early this year, we won the Billboard Songwriting Competition for the jazz category, and that was cool as well. We've been in it before and have placed, but not, it was like our first #1 kind of thing like that. But yeah, lineup right now, we got Tony Castronova on guitars, who replaced Tony Mann, because Tony Mann passed away in 2005.
Oh, yeah.
Fell asleep. We did a show on a Friday, and we had a rehearsal on a Tuesday morning, and Tuesday morning I got a call from our drummer and said that Tony never woke up. So, and he just was an unbelievable guy and one of the best people you'll meet too. And he was just, so that was kind of, that was rough, but it also ironically made the group launch up a level because we replaced pretty much all the personnel at that point.
Who are some of the other members? You mentioned you've got Tony Castronova playing guitar now.
Yeah, Tony replaced Tony, and he actually was really good friends with Tony Mann, the original guitarist, and but what he brought to the group is he actually has a jazz degree from University of Miami back. He went there back when Jocko was going down there, and I think Matheny was there, and they had quite a vibe going on down there with the jazz program. So he kind of comes from that Schofield kind of school as well, kind of a real open feel, but definitely has the jazz chops and the voicings and the chords and the knowledge of, how to take something I give him that I wrote, definitely enhance it by changing the voicings, that kind of thing. I write most of the stuff on keyboards, and I'm not really a great keyboardist. I hear what I hear, and I play a lot of block chords. So these guys will, stretch it out into something a little bit more, voiced out for more of a jazz feel. So,
well, at least you can put it from what you hear in your head to paper. I'm a bad keyboard player that still can't write, so I'm.
Yeah, I skip the paper altogether. I cheat, man. Like I said, I just bought a new keyboard, first time in 10 years, and these things are incredible. I mean, you can just sit down and start playing it, records it right into the keyboard, and fixes all your mistakes, and you dump it out. And I give them a CD, and great, they by ear they can pull it out and just play it. And we've always done it that way, anyways, because we memorize everything.
Oh, so
we don't read on stage. We hate, being stuck to a stand or that kind of thing. So.
Oh, so you've got a keyboard with spell check, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I can get away with it, the basic idea, and even if it's rough, I'll just give it to them guys, and they know me well enough, my writing style, to know what's going on and where I'm coming from. So it definitely helps, because then I can be a little bit more focused on writing rather than writing.
Okay.
You wouldn't want to see my music charts. That is true. The sad thing is I went to music school for the first run, and then I kind of gave up the theory thing and went to Middle Tennessee State for my bachelor's degree, but I actually got it in recording and technology. So my background is actually like post-production audio for film and TV and that kind of thing, mixing, editing. So I love taking what we recorded and ripping it apart and cutting things up and, making it sound good. So I'm glad I took that route, because I wouldn't have been able to do what we do, because, if we're paying somebody to do it, then it costs that much more to make a record. And
yeah.
These days,
what was the inspiration for this, for the Group Theory CD? Was there?
Well, it's co-written by Greg Gilmore, our new keyboardist. So Greg, actually, back in '05, we played a club up here, a really nice jazz club that doesn't exist anymore, but it's a place called the Montage, and it's kind of a place where you can sit down and have dinner and that kind of thing. So we invited Greg out. I hounded him for like over a year. I heard him in a guitar center up here playing keyboards, and I went in and I said, "Man," I go, "we're looking for a keyboard player." And at the time, I looked like I was about 15 years old, and Greg's like in his late 40s, and he's looking at me like, "Who's this kid?" Like, I could tell he's looking at me like, this kid wants me to join this punk rock band or something, So I actually had to get him up from the keyboard and show him the poster I was hanging out, and say, "Hey, we're playing Montage," and he saw the poster, and he's like, "All right, I got to check this out." But it wasn't until a year later that he actually joined the group, and thank God, because he definitely wrote half the stuff. We co-wrote the song that we won the Billboard contest on. He also owns a studio, which is the reason he was there at the Guitar Center. He was actually building a studio, and so that's our rehearsal space. We record there. He's a great engineer. He mixed the whole album. So he brings a lot of that knowledge, and also just the keyboard chops. But the group theory is kind of the study of groups of numbers and breaking things down to kind of a single output. So I mean, basically the whole Hard Logic, we were trying to come up. I couldn't even remember how we came up with the title of Hard Logic for the group. It was something Tony and I came up with, but it had to do with basically multiple inputs with one output. Logic circuits, that kind of thing. So you have, so it's the whole idea that we have 6 guys, but one voice. And group theories kind of takes it like way out into kind of a study of just groups of things and how different things affect different groups of variables, and just it goes way. If you read about it, that they've used group theory to study like Mozart charts and that kind of thing. And it's more of mathematical theories than it is music. But they've so we kind of, a lot of people probably wouldn't even know what that means, but to us it's kind of. And if you look at the CD cover, we actually had a cartoon artist, or a comic book artist, hand paint this whole thing. And he kind of took that concept of like just all the numbers and things coming together, and he actually made a poster, which is pretty cool. It's on our website, where he actually used his comic book style art, and we look like a bunch of zombies. It's kind of weird. I like the idea of kind of where he was coming from. That's where that came from, and we put, this is the first record with Greg and I's co-writing on it. So
okay,
a lot of great stuff on there.
Tell me a little bit about, let's see, a couple of more people from Dave Pinto and Bob Accurso.
Yeah, Dave. Yeah, I got Dave Pinto. He came on board around '05, so he basically after we came out with our first CD, which came out in '05, and he actually is a graduate of Berkeley Jazz Program. So, and Dave's actually a school-aholic. So he actually has more degrees than anybody I know. So he's kind of a unique guy. I mean, he started on Wall Street with a degree in finance, and he worked down in New York. And he grew up around the clubs down there, going to see the Brecker Brothers and Bob Berg, all these guys down in New York. His dad was a saxophonist, and then he came back up here, and then decided he's actually going to go to school for. He worked for an architecture firm. And then quit that and went back to school to get a jazz performance degree in bass. And then he just went through an intensive nursing program up here. So he actually went through an 18-month program, one of the hardest medical programs you can go through. So he's a pretty intense guy.
He's trying to keep working. That's what he's trying to do.
I mean, and on top of it, he just had newborn twins, and he's got a 2-year-old at home. So he's... But he can play anything on bass that I can play on sax, and he's unbelievable soloist, and just he has a great knowledge of jazz too. So when I play a chord when I don't even know what it is, he can kind of tell me what it is and decipher it to the guys in the group that know what's going on. I'm just a huge ear player, so sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing.
I hear you.
I think that's actually where my energy comes from, because I'm never thinking about it. It's just flowing from the heart,
Yeah. And Bob Accurso, plays vibes and percussion.
Yeah, Bob. He actually plays with a group, Gamelan, who actually had some records out in the past and have been fairly successful from the Buffalo area, just like Spiral Gyro from up there. And he also plays in a group called Maelstrom Percussion Ensemble, but he plays vibes, marimba, synthesized mallet cat, which is a synth mallet instrument, and then every percussion instrument you can think of. And he came on board. He's actually the oldest member of the group. He answered the ad for our first keyboard ad. And when I talked to him, he goes, "I don't play keyboards." And I'm like, "Well, why are you calling us then?" So he's like, "Well, I can emulate a keyboard on a synthesized mallet instrument." And I'm like, "All right, you got to bring that thing out here and see what's going on." So I had to see that. So when he came out to rehearsal, we were just, he was so interesting that we kept him on board. He doesn't come to all our shows because the club dates right now, we can't fit everybody in there. So
you're talking about on stage?
Yeah, our footprint's pretty large, so it's unfortunately we can't have him come out all the time because he takes up most of the stage himself. So, but yeah, great group of guys. I mean, it's we all have families up in this area, and we stay kind of rooted to Rochester. But what we're trying to do right now is get out there as enter as many contests as we can, send records out all over the place. We appreciate you guys playing it out there. I'm glad you like it.
Oh yeah.
But what we're trying to do is places like your town, and kind of build a following and over the radio, because we can't very well get in a car and leave our families nowadays, the way the economy is, and just hit the road and go aimlessly across the country playing, which we'd love to, we'd love to tour and get out there and play for more audiences, but it's going to be probably more on a spotty basis until we kind of build that following. So that's kind of our focus right now, is to get people exposed to it, because it's fun music. I mean, I think what makes us different from Spiral Gyro, Ripping Tins, a lot of the groups that we mentioned, is that our stuff's a little bit more accessible to crossing over into people that maybe wouldn't like jazz. And it's we cross enough style boundaries, not really even the style, it's just that we have, the melodies are real strong and grab you, but we use enough depth with the chord structures and that kind of thing, and obviously like the solos, to kind of get into that, the hardcore jazz crowd. But we don't go so far out that we lose, somebody that might listen to, or adult contemporary, or somebody who's like, I mean, we've played crowds where we've played kind of like blues bars in the city, and everybody's expecting to hear Leonard Skinner, and we come out with something like Attack of the Wiener Dogs, and they love it, because
Right.
it kind of brings out. I mean, if you listen to, a lot of those groups, those Allman Brothers, and a lot of the groups with great soloists and kind of jam bandish type rock type stuff. Those people really get into this kind of music too. So we've just been surprised at how many people accept the music that wouldn't. That's like probably the biggest thing is a lot of people. The places we play might not be jazz clubs, and people come up to us and they're just like, "This is great," and you ask them what kind of stuff they listen to, and they're like, they listen to a lot of, Billy Joel or whatever, stuff that's, could sort of lean towards that jazz style, but, they wouldn't expect to like a band that has no vocals, and they're surprised when we play sometimes. Where's your vocalist? And then we start playing, and they forgot about it, They don't care. So the vocalist is the sax,
Well, it might also speak to the fact that maybe a lot of these labels are, almost unnecessary.
Yeah.
Labels on music and what have you.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell somebody, well, I played thus and so, oh, well, I won't like that. Well, you don't know. You haven't heard it yet. So.
And that's why I'm careful when somebody asks, what do you play? Is it? Oh, you guys are a jazz band, and I'm like, no, we're a high energy, instrumental ensemble. It is, you have to hear it to understand it. I mean, and when they hear it, they like it. So
right.
It's more now how, I saw a thing in Starbucks the other day, and it's, their little sign over their CDs, and it said, music has to be heard to be loved.
Right. Well,
and that's exactly what, they may love it, but if they don't hear it, they don't know they love it,
Right.
So.
Well, it's kind of like what Duke Ellington said. There's only two kinds of music, good and bad, and the listener determines that.
That's it, too, styles or whatever, we don't even write for a certain style. So when I sit down at the keyboard or at the bass or sax or a melody or something might pop out, I've written, we have stuff for the new album that spans kind of anything from like a big band sound to Cajun, and I've got some really great Latin stuff that's going to be on the next CD.
Good.
And more of that bossa. I think we're going to lean more towards a Latin flavor on the next album because we have a great, all our best tunes are kind of in that realm right now. It's definitely taken a change because we're becoming more comfortable with the new group. We added Billy Goodness to drums just this year, so and he comes from touring with Ricky Van Shelton back in the 80s when they had like platinum records and stuff like that. So he's done the whole tour, Tonight Show. He was on with Carson. He had kind of a great ride with that band. Got to tour with all the name artists back then. So he's got endorsements and all that still. But he's a great guy, real intellectual guy. But he, changed the whole feel again. And if you listen to Chris Dembiotis on the current record, he's got, it's a total different drum feel than what's on the current record. But for the better, because I think we're really starting to lock as a group, and hopefully we can maintain the ensemble that we have now for some time. Because it took us about 2-3 years with the last arrangement to get real comfortable playing with each other, where it was like we didn't have to think about it. So I think by the time the next record comes out, it's going to be pretty happening, and it's going to be even a step up from what you're hearing now on this record. So,
well, I tell you, I really want to thank you for taking the time, Paul, and especially after all the fits and starts to try to get this interview going.
No problem.
No,
I'm just glad you guys like the music. If anybody wants to check it out, you can go to hardlogic.net. That's got all the albums. We've got the previous album too from '05, which has the guitar work from Tony Mann, and I've got a solo record on there. And then probably sometime next year we'll be coming out with the next disc. So, but on the site you can check out video, and we also have a lot of samples, even full samples of the new album. So, thanks a lot, Barry.
All right then, you take care now.
All right, man.
All right.